How do we get to a position where we're literally thinking about rewarding terrorists with everything that they want? I mean, when we went after Islamic State all those years ago, they wanted a caliphate state. We fought against that as Western allies. Imagine if we'd had the same position back then, we would have given Islamic State exactly the land they wanted.
Well, and as we've now given Afghanistan to the Taliban, and now women are being stoned again. So I find it really difficult to remain dispassionate on this issue, because I think there are certain issues of foreign policy where one must take a really strong and passionate line, and this is one for me. We must not give in to terrorism.
So how do we get here? Because one of the things I look at the UK, and I've been visiting there for 25 plus years, you are the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah.
In terms, I think, of losing your culture in certain areas of London in particular, but Britain, on the back of migration. Migration is a good thing, but don't lose your culture and your values with it. We are concerned now in Australia with the growth of the Muslim vote in some seats and the risk that is distorting once sensible Labor foreign policy.
I think how we got here is precisely as you outline, a great deal of migration, but also a policy of multiculturalism, which did not demand that those coming to the United Kingdom to make their lives conform themselves to our values, conform themselves to our way of living and our way of thinking about the world. We instead had a free-for-all and said you can come here and you can take advantage of all our amenities, of our labour market, of our freedom of speech and expression, and you can just do what you want. There was no demand from the political system.
So no responsibility with the rights?
None at all. There was no demand from the political system that people coming to Britain to make their lives actually became British. They became essentially sort of long-term tourists, using every amenity and every freedom for which Britons have fought and died over centuries for their own ends. And unfortunately, the Labour Party courted, and has courted for generations now, that very, shall we say, entrenched Muslim vote in parts of the Midlands and of the North, and certainly in Scotland. And I fear that it's led to a real fissure in the United Kingdom between those who have come, and I would say that the Sikhs and the Hindus who've come have very, very largely become British, and those who tend to be Islamic rather, who've come and just see it as a convenient jumping-off point for better lives economically, and really do hold in contempt so much of what we have historically valued.
Well, you've got a general election in the offing. I'm keen to get your sense. Are the Tories really headed for the wipeout everyone predicts? And what about Nigel Farage and the Reform Party? How are they in the mix?
I think the Tories certainly deserve to be wiped out. They've had 14 years during which all of the problems we see now have been allowed to flourish. Wokeism, the appalling assault on young people through the trans movement and the mutilation of so many young women, the decline of Britain as a major power through lack of belief in itself. And this is under a supposedly conservative government, and the utter, I must say, stagnation of the economy, because we've continued, as so many other nations have, this mad economic model of importing low-skilled workers and therefore having a wage suppressant effect on the whole economy. The housing crisis, which is almost entirely down to immigration, when we have 745,000 net migrants last year, as we did legal migrants, and yet we're building fewer than 100,000 houses. So I think the Tories are currently polling lower than they ever have in their entire history. They would have 150 seats.
Farage?
I think Mr Farage will play a good pressure role on the Conservative Party, as he's done throughout his entire career. My fear is that Reform will take votes from the Conservatives, and therefore there will be good Conservative MPs whose presence in Parliament after a defeat is necessary to have a true Conservative Party, who will be under threat. Goodness me, you could have been speaking about Australia there. I hasten to add, David Oldroyd-Bolt. Thank you for your time. Great to have your company.